finally, when you looked at Ashton Jeanty's tape, I imagine the Oregon game is one that you really zoned in on because they have NFL players everywhere. It is harder to make a guess if you're playing smaller schools. What is the first time you looked at Ashton Jeanty, who's now a Raider, the first time you looked at his tape and went, oh, okay, this, it's Boise State. This is real. This is a real difference maker. Yeah. Was there something that popped for you, a tendency or a trait that you had seen before and went, yeah, that's McCaffrey or that's whoever?
Well, contact balance, because you're going to get hit in the NFL. You've got to run inside between the tackles. You can't be a great back in the NFL by just running on the perimeter. So he has this unique ability to absorb hits and keep going without really losing any of his momentum. And that's a rare trait. So to me, his best trait is contact balance. And that's something that is absolutely essential. Now, he's got other traits as well. I don't want to make it seem like that's his only trait. Obviously, he's a great prospect, but I think the contact balance part is really, really special.
By the way, I want to add this. I watched virtually every pick, and I know it didn't have a lot of stars, but it's hard to convince me there weren't a lot of good players when Cody Simon, Ohio State linebacker, went in the 4th.
Okay, well, I want to focus on the Raiders and Ashton Jeanty. Yeah, we know he's hard to tackle. How does his game translate in the NFL? Well, being hard to tackle is going to translate pretty well in the NFL. Now you can make the argument that you're going up against inferior. I could play with a bunch of high school kids right now, and it's going to be hard for them to tackle me. I maybe depends on what high school, I suppose. But so that counter is valid, but I think what's going to be really beneficial to Jeanty is Chip Kelly coming out of college when he also has NFL experience as well. So for him to be in the NFL, go back to college, and now go back to the NFL, I think is going to be such a perfect bridge for him for these newer draft picks, especially on offense with Jeanty, because he's going to be able to speak to that transition from college to the NFL. He's going to understand deeply the pitfalls. He's going to understand more deeply what's easier in college, what's harder in college, some of the confusions that he's had, some of the things where he realized, oh, I thought I could do this at first, but then I realized I couldn't, or you know what, I can do this. It's usually typically against slower defenses, less physical, whatever it is. But I realized that when I play a higher level, I don't even think about it. It's like no question. And I think him being a bridge between college and the NFL will be incredibly valuable, which I really think that increases the likelihood of these draft picks really being able to make a bigger impact more quickly, because you're speaking the same. Him and Chip Kelly are speaking the same language at this point. And it's not like he's now coming from college and going to the NFL and now he's figuring out the NFL. Like he's been in the NFL. So again, like that's what makes him kind of such a unique bridge in that regard. Very similar to Harbaugh when he was, pros, college, pros. I just think it works well to be able to kind of have that layered experience. So I'm imagining that a player like Jeanty will for sure make an impact immediately. I really, really do. I think this offense has the chance to hit the ground running from the jump. I'm really excited to see this. I think the schedule gets released, in a couple weeks or something. I feel like in the draft, they said in May sometime. And it's going to be tough because I want to see what the first, because if the first matchup's against the Chiefs, probably not, but the Chargers or something, a team that we know is going to have a good defense. Any divisional game will be a tough defensive game and just a tough game in general because it's, divisional games. But I'm just curious because outside of playing an elite defense from the jump, they just play kind of a little bit more average, middle of the road type thing. I could see this offense just hanging 30 plus, just having one of those breakout offensive games, especially if they get lucky and play one of these lower level teams, essentially the version of the Carolina Panthers, the Cleveland Browns of last season. Now I'm saying, like any of those types of like opening week 1 games. I just think the potential for the offense could be legitimately explosive and just really sets the tone to be like, this is what's possible. And I think a game like that would go such a long way, because it would have the feeling of like, things are different now. This is not the Raiders of the old. Things are different. And then the job for the Raiders would be to just sustain that, rather than trying to have to kind of keep rebuilding and ignite some sort of confidence and belief in this team. It's like, oh, we did that. Now the agenda and the goal is to maintain this, to do this week after week after week. And it's so, when you can get a big commanding win, or you don't even have to win, if you just put up a ton of points, honestly, if the offense just clearly is smooth and running, you get to just say, and in the meetings, see guys, this is what I've been telling you all off season. This is what I've been telling you in July and August. Like, this is what I said. When we do X, Y, and Z, this is the outcome. We hang 35 points. We're able to rush for 200 yards, whatever it is. Like, you get to have that, and everyone starts to really believe in it and get confident behind it. Even if you're doing it against a terrible team, honestly, you're still able to build up that momentum, especially earlier on in the season. I think later on in the season, if you play a team that is just awful, then it's a little different. Like, coaching staff still tries to build up confidence off that, but like, everyone still knows, like, all right, we did just play the team that has 2 wins right now, and last week they just gave up 45 points to the Lions or whatever. So you can't trick people. But earlier on in the season, it's a little bit easier, I think, to kind of get excited, build off that momentum. Nobody really knows what any of these teams are going to look like just yet. So I think if the Raiders can get off to a hot start, which will be very dependent on the schedule, I think it's a team that could really catch fire. And I just think when you have a couple key pieces like a Jeanty, who obviously is a rookie first year out of college, you're going to be in a position where getting him settled and confident and comfortable, and quite frankly, even Chip Kelly, getting him comfortable and confident in his role now, reintegrating into the NFL, because he's going to have some doubt. He's going to have some question marks, and he understands what's at stake now. He knows what it's like to get back into the NFL. Like, he's not dumb. He knows it, right? And so, like, getting that momentum sooner rather than later, very much what we saw with Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels. It was not a rocky start. It was a smooth start, although not like super powered start, but it was still not kind of like, oh my God, what are we doing? We really got to work on all of this type of stuff. It was smooth, for the most part, mistake free. It was able to keep them kind of progressively going until they were able to go vertical and pop. And I can just see, that being pretty important for a team like the Raiders, especially when a huge focal point of your offense is going to be Jeanty, right? Like, that he is going to be a massive, massive, massive focal point of this offense. And so getting everyone settled around that, comfortable, confident in that, just goes an incredibly long way. The defense knows what they're playing for. Pete Carroll's able to work with that. Culturally, it starts to really kind of solidify the culture, because they're already starting now to build that culture. But especially preseason, especially when you're really in the meetings, at the workouts, doing all that type of stuff, like getting a couple wins early on and convincing wins, everything kind of starts to take root, and it matters. It really, really does. When you bring in a whole new regime, new coach staff, new quarterback, new main players that are now going to be impactful, right? Sometimes you get the luxury of drafting some of these players and, they're not a foundational. Jeanty's being invited into this team, and it's kind of like, oh, can you be a star now? Can you actually be one of the greatest Raiders we've ever had for this team? Can you do that? And can you do it now? Not all players get drafted into that environment, right? That's not how this always necessarily goes. So it is a lot of weight on this team and some of these draft picks. So yeah, but I see it being successful, though, to be clear. Just trying to kind of contextualize it. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Las Vegas Raiders? And Jeanty, I didn't even talk about this one, though, but Jeanty being among the favorites to win Rookie of the Year. I mean, obviously, come on. He's a monster. How do you think his game will translate in the NFL? How important do you think getting off to a strong start for the Raiders is? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.